You know it's this. Take a perk and a talk of that shit. Money swallowing like sis. Did it perfect in the kid. Got a billion who sang on my head. Look up better put on the road I just spent. I know we got $1 million. The devil that shit ain't not cheaper than again.
Hello and welcome back, fellow anime lovers, to MangaMuse. I am delighted to have you join us once again in the world of fanfiction and fantasy. This is the first part of What If Deku Enters Hunter x Hunter. Special note, this fanfic is written and a masterpiece of awesome 10 tales on FANFICTIONnet. Do check and support the author too. Now smash the like, share and subscribe button for more. Also press the bell icon so that you never miss such great parts. Thanks for the introduction. Now let's dive into the world. We see a pair of red eyes open, only to see a vast expanse of white, red eyes that belong to a cat-like humanoid girl that looks about 14 or 15, with wavy, white hair, white furred cat ears and tail. Her hands are also larger than average human hands. She's wearing a blue overcoat with 6 yellow buttons and cufflinks, orange shorts and socks with thin black stripes, and blue shoes. I should be dead, I remember that brat killed me. The girl says. You are dead, this is the land of judgment. She hears from behind her, she lunges back ready to fight, and sees a male. He's 22, has curly, brown hair and brown eyes with slitted pupils, along with brown fox ears, 10 brown fox tails, 3 whisker marks on both cheeks, and elongated canines. He's wearing a black 2-piece black suit with a white tie and a handkerchief in his left BRST pocket, and black dress shoes. If this is the land of judgment, then you're the Shinigami. I'll admit you don't look anything like I thought you would. The girl says, and the guy chuckles. That's because I'm not Shin, I'm a little low on the totem pole. While I am a god, I'm only a lesser god. I've got a deal for you, otherwise you wouldn't be here, you would have been sent straight to hell. My name is Tails, and I know who you are, Neferpitou. Tails says, when they see a flash of light in their peripherals, they look and see an unconscious boy the same age as Neferpitou. He has fluffy, dark green hair, on both sides of his face are 4 freckles in a diamond formation, he's wearing a black Gakuran school uniform and white sneakers, and he's kind of short for his age. Ah, right on time, Izuku. He thinks, but sighs. Though it's a shame you chose suicide, I was hoping I'd be wrong about this. He sighs tiredly. Who's he? Pitou asks. His name is izukumidoriya, he's part of your deal, if you choose to accept it, that is. Tails says. Who is this boy and why do I feel so calm looking at him and this feeling, what is this? Pitou thinks, holding her chest and sitting down a couple feet from Midoriya, and after an hour she notices Izuku stirring and scoots over to him. Hey, wake up, I'm tired of waiting. She says, and his eyes open, and she's a little surprised to see dead, dark green eyes. Wow, I must be dead, a girl as pretty as you would never talk to me, if I was still alive. Izuku says, sounding as broken as his eyes look. You're half dead, your soul is currently in the land of judgment, or as you know it, limbo. Your body is currently in the hospital in surgery. Tails says, and Izuku sits up. What's the point? It's not like I have anything to live for, I'm just a quirkless nobody. Izuku says. Aren't humans as young as you supposed to be full of hope? Pitou says, with a bit of snark. Maybe if I had any worth. Izuku says dully. Well, I'm going to get to why both of you are here. Both of you are getting second chances, considering the lives you were both forced to live. Tails says. What do you mean? I was born to be a monster, and to listen to the orders of my king, no matter what they were. Pitou says. And that's exactly why you're getting a second chance, you had no choice, I've given you free will and the full spectrum of emotions. Tails says. So what's my end of the deal? Pitou asks, unsure of how she feels about having the full spectrum of emotion. That is where you come in, Izuku. Tails says. What do you mean? Izuku asks. I'm going to give you access to the power of Pitou's world, Nen, and her end of the deal is to train you. Tails says. What do you mean by my/her world? They both ask. You both are from different worlds, but I'm not going to explain, it'd be easier to show you with each other's memories. Tails says, as a tail touches each other's foreheads. And people said chimera ants were monsters. Pitou says after a couple minutes, and to her surprise, she is feeling really angry. Wow, you come from a hell of a world. Tails, what do you want me to do with this power? Izuku asks. That's for you to decide, Midoriya. I'm already interfering more than I probably should be, massacre the entire world or get revenge on those who've stepped on you your entire life for all I care. Tails says but then smirks. But if you do want some type of advice, help the outcasts of your city. He says. Outcasts? Izuku says, confused. Yeah, outcasts, not all villains are actually bad, after all by the standards of your world, Pitou would be a villain. Tails says. But she isn't, she was just born in bad circumstances. Izuku yells, surprising Pitou. And that's what I'm getting at, plenty of villains aren't bad, just in bad circumstances. Before I let you both go, there are several things I have to do and tell you, and you two have to figure how you'll find each other. First, a hint to start helping outcasts. There's a girl a year older than you currently in your prefecture. Her name is Himiko Toga. She has a BLD quirk that forces her to drink BLD. She can't control the urge, but she can limit the urge if she gets a steady source of BLD. Now before I do the 3 things I need to do, you two need to figure out a way to find each other, when you're back in your body, and I manifest Pitou and Mizutofuu. Tails says. What do you mean? They both ask. Well, I can't exactly manifest you into his surgery room, so it's best that I give him Nen, and then awaken it, then you two find each other later, but therein lies the problem, how are you two going to find each other? Tails asks. That's easy, a mate mark, I'll be able to find him no matter where on the planet or how far apart he is. Pitou says, as she walks over to and bites Izuku's neck, but then her body erupts in pleasure. What was that? She yells, after a minute, her whole face being pink while breathing deep. Well, I didn't think you were going to do that immediately, or I would have told that you could do it, but it'd mark you too, since you didn't mark his body, you marked his soul, which can't be done without the same happening to you. Tails explains, but then chuckles seeing Izuku unconscious on the floor, with a full body blush. Either that hasn't changed, or it was the pleasure, with his mind situation it could be either. He thinks, and after another hour, Izuku wakes back up. What was that? Izuku asks. That is the byproduct of having a mate mark placed on you, an impossible to reach pleasure, unless it's with the same one who gave you the mark. She has one too. So I am to assume that you want to take this second chance, Pitou? Tails asks, she nods. And you, Izuku? He asks. Sure, if being brought back to life, will help Pitou get redemption. Izuku says, once again shocking Pitou. Then, let's get started. Tails says, placing a hand on Izuku's head, and in a surge of power the entire expanse erupts in light. Mizutofuu General Hospital. In the surgery room, several doctors are working on Izuku's body when his body glows white, and then a massive amount of power erupts around him, blasting everyone back, and Izuku shoots up completely healed. At least my pants are intact and considerably less BLD stained. He says, after taking a look at himself, then he stands up. What am I going to do? He thinks. How about you come find me, also get your Nen under control, I can see you from here, and if I'm right, I'm at least 3 miles away from you, that room is glowing like the sun. And before you say anything aloud, just think your response. He hears. Hi Pitou. Izuku thinks. Yep, and before you ask, this is part of our mate marks, unless we're actively blocking each other, we can hear each other's thoughts, now get your Nen under control or you're going to pass out. Pitou says. How do I do that? He asks. Sai, think of it like this, your body is a water tap, you're currently letting far too much water out, focus on settling it to a gentle drizzle, just focus. She explains, and after a minute she feels his bursting Nen recede. Good, now come and find me, let's get you started on training. She says. Right, sorry mom, but you're better off without me. He thinks, and without realizing, punches a hole in the wall, and jumps away from the hospital, following a feeling in his gut. After an hour he walks into an abandoned warehouse with food and sees Pitou sitting on a crate. About time. She says. Sorry, I needed new clothes, woke up in the surgery room, with only blood-stained pants on, and also got some food. He says, and she nods, taking in his new outfit, an open black track jacket with dark green stripes down the arms, while the inside of the tracksuit and its collar are also dark green, under the top is a white t-shirt, black track pants with similarly dark green stripes down the legs, and black and green high tops. A new outfit, might be something I should get too. She says off-handedly, as he hands her some food, and she nods in thanks. So what am I going to learn first? He asks. Well, you've already learned the first principle of Nen, 10, all the aura nodes in your body have been opened and you've controlled your bursting aura into an invisible to the naked eye shroud. So we'll eat, and I'll teach you how to meditate to refine it. She says. Oh, is there anything I should know about 10? He asks. Not really, though it does slow aging and you'll maintain your youthful vigor, whatever that means. She says, and an hour later the two of them are sitting on the floor cross-legged. Alright, for the next 2 months we'll spend 8 hours of the day meditating and refining your 10, 4 to combat training, 4 to finding this toga girl and outcasts, and then 8 to sleep. She says. Do you actually sleep? Izuku asks. Depends, if I actually get tired out yes, but normally no. Pitou says. So normally you'll just be on guard. He says. Yep, and watching you sleep. She says. Okay. He says. Are you not creeped out by that? She asks. Pitou, I've dealt with people who essentially try to kill me, my entire life, someone watching me sleep isn't really a problem. He says. I'm supposed to say that's sad, right? She asks, both uncertain and awkward. If you want, you don't have to, you should get used to having the full spectrum of emotions first. He says. 2 months later. Geez, Naya, how hard is it to find one girl? Pitou says, annoyed. She's wearing a new outfit consisting of a blue, sleeveless hoodie shirt that is cropped over a dark red undershirt, puffy, blue shorts, dark red leggings, and dark red and blue sneakers. Sigh, I'll admit this is annoying, but you know what's more annoying, I just realized Tails didn't tell us or show us what this toga girl looks like. Izuku says, and we see he's gained a bit of muscle. Did I hear you say the name Toga, as in Himiko Toga? A random teen, walking by them asks. Yeah, do you know her? Izuku asks. Know her, I was dating her last month before she tried to kill me, that bee is crazier than most of the villains that appear nowadays. The teen says, and Izuku notices Pitou's fingers twitching, while he tightens his fist. Yeah, well, we don't care what she did to you, we just want to find her. Izuku says with a razor edge. Geez, just trying to warn you, the chick is effing insane. The teen says when he's socked in the face and thrown across the street and through several buildings. He used on pure instinct. Pitou thinks, shocked, looking at the orb of Nen around Izuku's fist. Let's go. Izuku grinds out, as the two of them walk to a park. Naya, I think I'm a bad influence on you, I don't believe you would have reacted like that, 2 months ago. Pitou says, smirking. True, but I believe I've also been a good influence on you, by the way your fingers were twitching, I believe you were just as angry as I was. He says with a similar smirk. TCH, either way, you're turning out to be a Nen prodigy. She says. What do you mean? He asks. When you punched that guy, you used an advanced Nen technique called on pure instinct, which is a combination of 10, Zetsu, Hatsu, Ren, and Gyo, to which only one of them you've learned. Pitou explains. Heh, guess I'm not a Deku after all. Izuku says with a smile. Later that day we see Izuku and Pitou walking towards the abandoned warehouse, which isn't as abandoned. It's bustling with activity, and they even notice two people walking towards them, one is a guy and the other is a girl. Midoriya, Neferpitou, you two are finally back. The male says in a friendly manner, he looks probably 18, has spiky black hair and red eyes, there is a black teardrop-shaped mark on the right side of his neck, he's wearing a white t-shirt, black jeans, black and white sneakers, and a long black coat with a red, furred collar. Izuku also barely notices a bandage on his right arm. Noroi, who's this? Izuku asks looking at the girl, who looks to be 15, she has ash blonde hair in two messy buns and golden yellow, cat-like eyes, both her upper and lower canines are sharper than the rest of her teeth, she's wearing a sifuku under a beige cardigan, knee-length black socks, and brown formal shoes. My name is Himiko Toga, I believe you two have been looking for me. Toga says, guarded. I'm guessing you let her have some of your BLD, Noroi. Izuku asks, and Noroi nods. Well then, it's nice to finally meet you Toga, name's Izuku Midoriya and this is Neferpitou. He says. So why have you two been looking for me? Toga asks. It's a bit difficult to explain, and you probably wouldn't believe the truth anyway. Izuku says. But if you want to know, follow us. He says. Well, I'll head on, someone needs to get drinks and food. Noroi says, but Pitou grabs him by the collar of his shirt. Naya, you're coming too. She says, and an hour later the four of them are sitting in a back room, while Toga and Noroi are digesting what they were just told. You were right, it is hard to believe, but I'm really good at telling when others are lying, and you're telling the truth. Toga says. I know you're telling the truth as well, it may not seem like it, but I have hearing good enough that in a small room like this, I can hear your heartbeat. Noroi says. Anyway, you two can go. Pitou says. Wait, if you two plan on creating an organization that helps outcasts, do you have a name for it? Toga asks curiously. No, I never really thought of naming this, I just want to help those that society fails. Izuku says. Well, if we need a name, how about Phantom Links? Pitou says. Where'd that come from? Noroi asks. Well, back in my old world, there was this group, they were called the Phantom Troop, and I thought the Phantom part sounded a little cool. Pitou says. And the Links part? Toga asks. Naya, the four of us all have some affinity towards cats. Pitou says. With your ears, claws, and tail, and my eyes and canines, I can understand, but not these two. Toga says. Heh, I don't know about Midoriya, but she's not wrong about me. Noroi says, as the mark on his neck glows a burnt orange, and quickly spreads over the rest of his body, as what look like cat ears shift out of his head and two cat-like tails grow out of his tailbone when the transformation stops, we see that his skin is brown while his scara are now black, his nails are also now claws, and the two tails are black fur like his hair. This is the full power of my quirk, Dark Mark, though I'm at my most powerful in this form, I can do a lot more with my quirk, but I also have rage problems. He says, and the transformation recedes. Meh, cats and I just get along really well. Izuku says. But I like the name, Phantom Links. He says. Naya, anyway, you two can leave, I need to revise the king's training. Pitou says surprising them, including herself. King. Noroi says. Naya, habit from my old world. Pitou says, as Toga and Noroi leave the room. Meow, after what happened earlier, I'm going to give you a rundown on the other three major principles of Nen. Second is Zetsu, remember how I said to look at 10? She asks. Yeah, like my Nen is a water tap, and focus on letting it flow in a gentle drizzle. Izuku says. Right, Zetsu is turning the tap off completely, which has its advantages and disadvantages. It makes you harder or even impossible to be sensed by other NIN users, though I have no idea how that'll work with sensing quirks, while using Zetsu one becomes more sensitive to the aura of others. But Zetsu also leaves a body defenseless to any and all aura attacks, to the point that taking even a weak attack enhanced with Nen could be life-threatening. Niao Ren, it's the exact opposite of Ten, care to take a guess? She says. Well, if Ten is a restriction of Nen to a small amount, then Ren is the releasing of that restriction, allowing it to flow freely. He guesses. That's mostly right, you were wrong about letting it flow freely. Once one learns Ten, then it's their Nen's natural state, so Ren is the forceful expulsion of one's Nen, and so a byproduct of using Ren is the amplification of one's physical strength and durability, a larger pool of aura to use, all at the cost of expending aura quicker. Though a unique aspect of Ren is when you're using it and you tinge it with hostility, you'll start exerting bloodlust, which is dangerous for those without access to Nen. Exerting bloodlust long enough on people can cause at first a feeling of dread, further exposure could damage the body or even cause paralysis, being exposed for too long can even cause death. She explains. Wow. He says stunned. Niao, Hatsu, it's actually the most simple and yet the most complicated. Pitou says. Why? Izuku asks. Hatsu, is one's personal expression of Nen. She says. Like your Dr. Blythe? He asks. Naya, exactly, Niao, I want you to try Zetsu and Ren, then for the next month, practicing Ren will take the place of Ten. Also, now that we have more people here, we can focus solely on your training, which is perfect. She says. He nods and focuses. After a couple minutes, she can no longer feel his Nen. Good, Niao Ren. She says. He nods, and in a few seconds his aura erupts around him, and she suddenly has a vision of a vast ocean. Naya, amazing, he's got even more Nen than the king, probably more potential as well. She thinks amazed. Month later. Pitou and Izuku are in the back room again, and on the table is a glass of water with a leaf floating at the top. Naya, you're amazing, you know. Pitou says. What do you mean? Izuku asks. Well, with what I learned about Nen, it takes some months to be able to exert Ren for 3 hours, let alone 8 hours, which you did in a month. Niao, it's time to see what Nen type you fall under. She says. Nen type? He asks. Yes, Nen types, there are 6, Enhancer, Transmuter, Emitter, Conjurer, Manipulator, and Specialist, which is what I am. Niao, put your hands around the glass and use Ren, Naya. She says. He does, and after a few seconds the water starts to boil and the leaf erupts into flames. What does that mean? He asks. You're a specialist, like me. Pitou says. Oh, so you can help me. Izuku says happy. Actually, I can't, you have to create your Nen abilities on your own, though it doesn't help that you got specialist, the abilities of a specialist can be extremely wide-ranging. She says. Oh. He says sadly. Naya, don't start moping on me, I won't help, because I believe you can do this on your own. She says smiling, which makes him smile, and she feels her heart quicken. This feeling again, what is this? She wonders to herself. Oh, before we leave, could you give me a rundown of the other 5 Nen types? Izuku asks. Sure, first is Enhancer, it's the most basic of the types, and likely the most common, and has the natural ability to increase the natural abilities of an object or one's own body, meaning they're great melee fighters. Then we have Transmuter, they can change the properties of their aura to mimic something else, or only specific attributes. Niao, Emitters, they have an easier time separating their aura from their body, meaning most emitters are ranged fighters. Conjurers have the ability to create a physical, independent, material object out of their aura, though they can also create laws and principles and affix them to an area. Last is Manipulators, they are able to control living and non-living things, including aura constructs and enemies. Pitou explains, and then leaves the room. Month later. We see Izuku behind the warehouse exerting his ren in frustration, when he hears a commotion out front. What the hell is going on? He mutters, and heads out front only to see bodies and blood all over the place. He also sees Toga and Noroi fighting a big guy. He has short, spiky, blonde hair and beady black eye, with a large scar down the left side of his face. He's wearing a red tank top, dark green pants, and black, knee-high boots. He also notices one of Toga's arms is definitely broken, and Noroi is pretty beaten and bloody. On the outer edge of the area are a bunch of people watching, including a couple heroes, and a news crew. Izuku can't hold his restraint anymore, and his ren explodes, cracking everything around him, and though no one can sense nen, everyone can feel the change in the air. The villain in particular feels like he's going to die. Everyone looks over at Izuku and sees his eyes are being shadowed by his hair. "Who are you?" he asks, deathly quiet. "Heh, I'm the carnal murderer Muscular." Muscular says, and he sees Izuku look around. "Why are you doing this?" Izuku asks, and Muscular laughs. "Why not, it's fun." Muscular says simply. "It's fun, killing is fun." Izuku says darkly, not noticing his aura condensing to the point it's a thin veil barely off his skin. "Yeah, it's fun." Muscular says, as muscle fibers wrap around his arms and legs, and he appears in front of Izuku, and punches him, but to everyone's surprise Izuku only skids back a few feet, while Muscular screams in pain holding the hand that hit Izuku. "My turn." Izuku says, appearing in front of Muscular, and punches him in the face, causing a cracking noise simultaneously as he's thrown back, but Izuku appears behind him, and kicks him, sending him flying again, but Izuku appears above him, drop-kicking him, putting him in the pavement. "People like you deserve nothing but death," he says, but sighs, going into Zetsu trying to calm down. "We're not done yet." Muscular yells, over Izuku, ready to hit him with a double axe handle, but suddenly Pitou's between them and holding both of Muscular's ripped-off arms, making Muscular scream in pain and pass out. "Sai, reattach his arms Pitou," Izuku says. "Naya, why, he hurt our friends," Pitou says, dropping the arms. "Alright, let the heroes deal with him then," Izuku says, as the two walk over to Toga and Noroi. "You two alright?" he asks. "I'm fine, Toga's the one who needs help," Noroi says, and they do see that most of his bruises have already healed. "It must be nice to have accelerated healing," Toga says in slight pain. "Well, let's tend to the wounded," Pitou says. "Yeah, Noroi, find those that are uninjured, and gather up those who are," Izuku says, and Noroi nods. "Naya, and while we're waiting, you and I are going to have a talk," Pitou says. "What do you mean?" Izuku asks, confused. "Well, you were using enhancement nen perfectly, which should be impossible since enhancer is on the opposite side of the nen chart from specialist," Pitou says. "What do you mean, and nen chart?" Izuku asks. "All nen types have a chart. The type you're born as is 100%, the two adjacent are 80%, while the one adjacent to them are 60%, lastly the one directly opposite of the one you're born with is only 40%. Unless it's the specialist type, abilities that'd be in that type, are only possible by a person with a specialist nen type. For the other types, specialist is 0%. Pitou explains. "What's that have to do with me using enhancement?" Izuku asks. "The enhancer category is directly opposite of specialist. Other than anger, what were you feeling, when or before you saw what Muscular did?" Pitou asks. "Mostly frustration, from not being able to make my nen ability after a month, and just wishing I had one of the other nen types," Izuku says. "Oh, well, that explains it," Pitou says. When a large hand lands on both their shoulders, they look to see the pro-hero Death Arms. "You two are coming with us," Death Arms says, but they both shake the hands off. "Maybe if you pro-heroes weren't so incompetent, you wouldn't always need to be saved by the ones you're supposed to be helping." Now you can either leave, or get someone competent like Mizu or Eraserhead down here, while we help our friends. Izuku says coldly, and then he sighs. What's wrong? Pitou asks. Nothing, it's just, since this was probably on the news, we can expect to see my mother and likely the angry Pomeranian. He has an inferiority complex so big, it doesn't even fit on the planet, in the next couple days. Izuku says. A couple days later 3 people are walking into the warehouse. The first is a portly woman who's probably 31, she has shoulder length, dark green hair and eyes similar to Izuku, she's wearing a white shirt under a pink t-shirt and pink slippers. The second is a male, the same age as Izuku and Pitou, he has spiky, ash blonde hair and red eyes, he's wearing a black, V-neck shirt, under an orange and black, button-up, plaid, long-sleeve shirt, gray cargo pants and black sneakers with orange stripes on the sides. The third is a mouse with white fur, he's wearing a white dress shirt, a dark red tie around his neck, a black double-breasted waistcoat and matching dress pants, and orange lace-up sneakers. What do you 3 need? Wait your Nizu, so those worthless heroes finally used their limited brain space, to get someone competent to talk with Izuku, he's this way. Toga says walking up, looking at the mouse. Thanks, but I think izukumidoriya takes precedence. Nizu says, not saying anything about her arm, since he knows there very well could be someone with a healing quirk here. Everyone, Rafters, Midoriya and Neferpitou are getting ready to spar. Noroi yells. Oh, guess you 3 are going to have to wait. Toga says, taking the 3 of them into the rafters. Is there really need for this much caution? Inko asks worriedly. Very much, if anyone else were to fight either of them, they'd be in danger of fatal injuries. Noroi says walking up. What about that guy, who fought Izuku? Inko asks. Oh, the worst thing to happen to Muscular was Neferpitou ripping his arms off, though he'll probably be in constant pain. Noroi says. Since there's no Nen for him to awaken. Noroi and Toga think. They're starting. Toga says, and everyone looks down to the floor to see the ground under Izuku crack, as he shoots forward and into a flurry of punches and kicks, all of which Pitou blocks, he then drops to a crouch to sweep her feet, though she jumps and kicks him, blasting him across the warehouse. He gets back up and rushes towards Pitou, and sends another flurry of blows, that she blocks and then kicks him, knocking him back again. He gets back up and Pitou sees his nen condense around him. Full cowling 30%. Izuku thinks, speeding towards her, and then disappears, appearing behind her, and landing a kick to her head and then appears in front of her, hitting with a palm strike, pushing her back. He's gotten faster and stronger, compared to a minute ago. Have you really been looking down on me all this time? The blonde boy thinks shocked and angry. Naya, you've gotten better Izuku, I actually feel your hits now. Pitou smirks, appearing beside Izuku kicking him, launching him, when she starts using him to play ping pong, eventually launching him into the air and appearing by him and launching him back to the ground. He manages to get back up as she lands, and sends a bit of nen to his mouth and whistles, causing Pitou to start mewling in pain holding her ears. I don't want to imagine it but these 2 are even faster than All Might, could they also be stronger? Nizu thinks, sweating. There, full cowling 100%. Izuku thinks, appearing by her and roundhouse kicks her, launching her across the warehouse. Nefi. Izuku screams worried, seeing her actually bleeding quite a bit, and he runs over to her. Naya, I'm fine, though I really felt that one. Pitou says smiling, and Izuku puts his hand on the ground. Minute healing field. Izuku says, leaving an imprint of the kanji for heal on the ground, as a green field appears around the 2 of them, and their injuries heal at an astonishing rate. Up in the rafters the 3 guests hear both Noroi and Toga chuckle. Nefi huh. The 2 of them think, smirking. Alright everyone, the spar's over. Pitou yells, as she and Izuku go to a set of couches and tables close to the back room. Alright, you 3 should be able to talk to him now. Toga says, as she and Noroi lead them down the rafters, and over to Izuku. Izuku, you got guests. She says, and he looks at them. Okay, well you three can, Izuku says, but stops when seeing the blonde boy, Nizu, and Inko sees all the pleasantries leave his eyes. Sigh, you three can take a seat, Pitou, Noroi, Toga, you three are on standby. He says, and they nod standing behind him, and he leans back on the couch, crossing his leg over the other and crossing his arms. Is this really Deku? The blonde boy thinks. As much as I'd like to get to business, I'd like to know why the F you're here, bakugou. And please don't tell me it's because you care, you and I both know caring about others goes against your very nature. Izuku says coldly, looking at the blonde-haired boy, surprising. The five of them. So this is Katsuki Bakugou. Pitou thinks, on the verge of growling in rage. Izuku, how could you say that, I thought you and Bakugou were friends. Inko says confused. TCH, Bakugou and I stopped being friends when he decided to make me his personal punching bag, after I was diagnosed quirkless. Izuku says, shocking everyone but Pitou and Bakugou, within earshot of them. Within seconds Bakugou is being held against the wall, by Noroi, whose left arm is brown and slightly bigger, along with the left half of his face, while the scara is black, with a piston-like protrusion extending from his elbow. Bakugou sees nothing but murder in his eyes. What gives you the right? Noroi roars. Noroi. Izuku yells, catching everyone's attention. Drop him. He isn't worth the effort. He says, with far more authority than any of them have ever heard from him, and Noroi reluctantly reverts back to normal, dropping Bakugou. Considering what everyone just heard, I suggest you leave, Katsuki Bakugou. Pitou says, while everyone can hear the barely restrained rage in her voice, as the ground under her starts slowly cracking, Bakugou grunts and leaves. Well, now that that's over with, let's get down to business, Mom, Nizu. Izuku says friendly, as if none of what happened at all. Well, I'd like to talk to you privately, so it's best that Principal Nizu talks to you first. Inko says, and Izuku nods. Well, there are some pros who want you two to be arrested. Nizu says, indicating himself and Pitou. And by pros, you specifically mean a certain flaming piece of SHT. Izuku says, surprising Inko. Exactly, I on the other hand think you two would make great future heroes. Nizu says, surprising Izuku and Inko. Well, I guess that's a good idea. You do need to show that hero schools can produce competent heroes, and not just meatheads, like All Might, Flame Brain, and the Rabbit Bee. Izuku says coldly, surprising Nizu, and shocking Inko. Yes, well, I'd like to extend the offer to participate in the entrance exam, and if you're feeling bold maybe pull a few strings, give you a chance to participate in the licensing exam. Nizu says, but Nizu and Inko are surprised when Pitou answers. We'll do it, but answer one question. Pitou says. Of course. Nizu says. Why take a risk like this, for the two of us? Pitou asks. Well, part of it is, I don't know, a gut instinct, the other is I can only think of one pro who could have dealt with muscular like you two did. Nizu answers. TCH, I can think of a pro that could make muscular easy, even for the weaklings that were there. Izuku says. Well, I look forward to seeing you two's attempt at the licensing exam, which is in a couple weeks. You'll be going with 3 of the school's strongest students. Nizu says, handing Izuku a phone and leaving. Well, Mom, you and I can talk in this back room, you guys stay out here. Izuku says, after several hours Pitou is the only one still by the back room, when she sees Inko walk out and up to her. Yes. Pitou asks, seeing that Inko's trying not to burst into tears. I'd like to thank you, for helping and looking after Izuku. Inko says and leaves, and Pitou walks into the back room, to see Izuku tearing up. She sits down beside him and pulls his head onto her lap, and runs a hand through his hair. What happened? Pitou asks, through their link. I told her how much I hated her. He thinks back. Why, you don't hate her. She thinks. I don't know, it happened so fast. She still thinks I'm weak and can't handle myself. I had a lot of pent-up anger. She said some things and I just blew up. Izuku thinks, and Pitou can feel how distraught he is. Is that what's happening? Have we gotten close enough to feel each other's emotional states? She thinks, with a warmth in her chest, and not realizing she's smiling. 2 weeks later. Izuku and Pitou are walking down a hallway along with 3 17-year-olds. The first is a very pretty girl with knee-length, periwinkle hair and royal blue eyes. She's wearing a royal blue, skin-tight bodysuit with a high black collar, pale mint green knee-high boots with turquoise spirals around her ankles, matching yellow spiral gauntlets and 2 spiraling horns of hair protruding from behind her ears. The other 2 are both guys. One is tall and has a pretty muscular build. He has unique-looking blue eyes, and blonde hair which is in a cowlick. He's wearing a white and blue skin-tight outfit with a 1 million imprinted on his chest, a red cape and a yellow visor. The other has unkempt indigo hair and eyes, and pointy elf-like ears. He's wearing a black bodysuit with gold plating. He also dons a white tunic, with a white hooded cape connected to a similarly white scarf, a purple mask, and he's barefoot. So you 3 are the upcoming big 3. Izuku says. That's right, I'm Nijire Hado, and these 2 are Mirio Togata and Tamaki Amajiki. The girl says excitedly, pointing at the guy with a million imprinted on his chest, then the guy with elf ears. And you 2 are the civilians. Nizu is allowing to take the Provisional Heroes licensing exam. Mirio says. Yeah, I'm Izuku and this is Neferpitou. Izuku says. Though he is underestimating us. Pitou says, walking ahead. What does she mean? Tamaki asks. Nizu expects us to fail, since Pitou and I don't have the training everyone else here does. The thing is Nizu hasn't seen the tip of the iceberg, of what Pitou and I are capable of. Izuku says, and then catches up to Pitou. The 2 nod and go into Zetsu. They walk into a very cramped room with a whole bunch of people. Do all heroes wear such ridiculous outfits? Pitou thinks. Regretfully. Izuku thinks back. We aren't going to be caught in an outfit like that. She says. Yeah, not a chance in hell. He says, up in the very front, the 2 see a very sleep-deprived man on a podium with a mic. The name's Yakumaru and I'm really tired, so I'm going to get to the gist. Only 100 people are going to make it past the first phase. Yakumaru says, unenthusiastically, and the room starts shaking, and the room breaks apart, letting everyone see that the room was in the center of a giant stadium. After a few minutes everyone is handed 3 tag-like objects and 6 orange ball, and are instructed to put the tags on visible parts of themselves. Now for phase 1, the 3 tags each of you are wearing will act as weak points. If all 3 are hit, you're out, but you only need to hit to 2 tags in all to pass. Now spread out. When you hear the horn the test has begun. Yakumaru says. Well, good luck you 2. Mirio says, while Tamaki nods and Nijire waves at them. The 2 of them nod and walk away on their own, but on the way they smirk seeing Nizu and a skeletal-looking man in the stands. After a few minutes a horn blows. In the stands several pros are talking, when 2 dings are heard. Civilian participants Neferpitou and Izukumidoriya have passed the first phase, head to the waiting room to wait for phase 2. An automated voice says, shocking everyone. Izuku and Pitou have been waiting in the back of the waiting room for around 10 minutes, when Nijire and Tamaki walk in. So, where's Togata? Izuku asks. He's having a hard time, he can't use his quirk, or the tags will fall off. Tamaki says. Yeah, it was really funny watching him run around panicking. Nijire says. Naya, probably like a headless chicken. Pitou says, making Izuku and Nijire chuckle. After 2 hours have passed, 99 people are in the waiting room, when the 4 of them see Mirio walking in. You almost didn't make it. Tamaki says. Yeah, you're exactly number 100, so we should hear something very soon. Izuku says, at that moment they see the different sections of the stadium blow up startling everyone. Here's the second and final phase, a villain terrorist attack simulation. All of you will be conducting a rescue operation. Yakuza drawls, and everyone walks out of the waiting room. Pitou, I'll be helping with rescuing, I need you to go on autopilot. Izuku says, and she nods. Those around the two of them see Pitou's scara overtake her pupil and iris. Life radar, distance coordinates reading. She mutters, zoning out, and Izuku sees a holographic projection of the stadium. There are also a ton of red dots. Izuku hands her a thing of sticky notes and a pen, and she starts writing coordinates. This ability is handy but dangerous. Because of her concentration she's put into a state of zetsu. Izuku thinks. Amajiki, Heido, could you hand these out, their coordinates, to all the survivors? Also find a way to make this the medical area. Mirio, please come with me. He says, shocking everyone, but the three named nod, as Izuku and Mirio, plus others with coordinates, head out into the wreckage, while all the pros watching are very impressed. Why did neither of us grab any of the coordinates? Mirio asks. That's because you're with me. Unless Pitou and I are actively blocking it, we hear each other's thoughts, so I'm hearing coordinates right now. Izuku explains. Well, that must be handy. Mirio says, and Izuku nods, but notices that the skeleton-like man and another pro-hero is missing from the stands. Keep your eyes open and pay attention to everything. Izuku says. Why? Mirio asks. 1, for the survivors, and 2, if this were a real situation, you shouldn't assume that the villains are gone. Izuku says. You know, you really sound like a pro. Mirio says, and unbeknownst to the two of them, the pros hear this and agree. I've watched and studied heroes since I was 4, now look alive, there are survivors around this collapsed building. Full cowling 3%. Izuku thinks. Well, now that I don't have those tags on me, I can use my quirk. Mirio says, as he goes through the rubble, while Izuku starts working through the rubble. After a minute, he makes it to a clear area, where Mirio has already gathered up the survivors, and is comforting them. You're going to be good with civilians. Izuku says. Maybe, but Neferpitou will be good with rescues, with her quirk. Mirio says, and Izuku just rolls his eyes at the word quirk. Who might need immediate medical attention? Izuku asks, holding up his right hand, and they see the kanji for heal on his palm. I have 2 healing abilities, both require me to place this mark. One can be done on a person and heals the most dire of injuries first, though it only lasts 5 seconds, or I can place the mark on a surface like the grounds and create a field around the mark. It lasts a minute but is far more thorough. He explains. I thought you had some sort of body enhancement quirk. Mirio says, confused, and sees a flash of anger from Izuku. Togata, I'm only going to say this once, and I don't care if you believe me or not, I am quirkless. Izuku says, almost venomously, to the point he uses Ren by accident, cracking everything around him, surprising all of them. Now who needs immediate medical attention? Izuku asks after taking some deep breaths, and after a few seconds 3 of the survivors raise a hand, he then shakes their hands leaving a mark on them. 5-second healing rush. He thinks, and the 3 with the marks, feel all of the aches and pains disappear. Well, let's head out to the medical area. Mirio says, and they all nod, with Izuku heading out first, then help the survivors out. They then head to the medical area with Izuku in front and Mirio in the back. When they make it back, the survivors are a little surprised seeing the amount of survivors already here. Heido, Amajiki, how many survivors are here? Izuku asks. About 30. Tamaki says, and Izuku nods, standing in the middle of all the survivors, and places his hand on the ground. Minute healing field. Izuku says, erecting the field around them, healing everyone, getting rid of everyone's aches and pains from today's exertions. After the minute is done, a wall of the stadium blows up, they see the number 10 hero gang Orca, a bunch of sidekicks, and scaring every student applicant, the number 1 hero All Might. Get everyone into the waiting room, some of you deal with the sidekicks. Pitou, Izuku goes to say, when he hears something that makes his heart practically stop. Nyaya. Everyone hears Pitou scream in pain, as they all see her be thrown by a punch from All Might, and before anyone can say anything, the entire field of the stadium shatters, and they trace the cracks straight to Izuku, who looks livid. Midoriya, are you out? Mirio doesn't get to finish his question, when Izuku appears in front of All Might, punching and blasting him through the stadium, except he isn't blasted back since Izuku grabs his foot, pulling him back, and lands a straight punch to All Might's face, plowing him into the ground, shattering it further. Those around the two also notice the area getting unbearably hot quickly. Izuku then grabs All Might by the foot again, and throws him into the air, following after immediately, appearing above him. Full cowling 100%, KO. Izuku roars, kicking All Might straight to the ground, creating a pretty deep crater. Izuku appears in the crater, slowly walking toward All Might, who to all but one person's surprise is spitting up a lot of BLD and having a very hard time getting up. Aizu, calm down, I'm fine. Izuku hears in his head, breaking him out of his rage-induced stupor. Nefi. Izuku yells, running out of the crater, as everyone including the simulated villains move out of his way. He runs into the waiting room and sees Tamaki trying to get her to sit back down. She walks up to him, when he pulls her into a hug, and she winces. Heh, okay, mostly fine. Pitou says, chuckling, making Izuku frown, placing his palm on her cheek, making her blush, leaving his heel hark. 5-second healing rush. He whispers, and she winces. Thanks. She says, and then he hugs her again. You need to figure out how to be more aware when that ability is active, and be defended. Izuku says. Yeah, I know. Pitou says, hesitantly wrapping her arms around him, and melting into the warmth. You know you have to heal All Might, right? She says, through the link. I know. Izuku says, and after a minute, all the survivors are in the room. And that's the end of the exam. Yakumaru drawls. An hour later the two of them are walking through a hall, towards the medical room of the stadium, at the same time looking at the two little cards they're holding. Humph, so this is a hero license. It's not as impressive as I thought it'd be. Pitou says. Yeah. Izuku agrees, as they stop at the door, and knock on the door. Yes. They hear Nizu. It's Izuku and Pitou. Izuku says. Come on in. Says a flamboyant voice. They open the door and see both Nizu and All Might. It's good to see you too. I was going to contact you, but we could talk right now. Nizu says. No, I only came to apologize to All Might. Izuku says. There's no need, young Midoriya. All Might says. You remember that you're human, right? Pitou asks. What do you mean? All Might asks. You're only human, you're allowed to show your pain. Pitou says. But. I'm not in pain, All Might goes to say, but screams in pain when Pitou flares her ren, so only Izuku knows she caused it, and All Might erupts in smoke, and when it clears they see the skeletal-looking man. SHT. All Might says. Was that so hard? You can't shoulder the weight of the world, you know, no one can. Izuku says. Anyway, we didn't come to socialize, I came to apologize for losing control of my anger like I did, so. Izuku says, grabbing both of All Might's arms, leaving 2 marks. 10-second healing charge. He says. What about his organs? Pitou asks. Right, wasn't thinking about that, thanks for reminding me, Nefi. All Might would like your organs to be restored. Izuku asks, shocking All Might and Nizu. Like me, Nefi has a healing ability, but it's more like being part of a medical procedure, and she can restore your organs. It's just an offer, you don't have to make a decision right now. He says as the two of them leave. I know I brought it up, but why'd you tell him I could restore his organs? Pitou asks. I might not have the same respect for as I did before, but he still is the best example of what a hero is, though you could also say it's thanks for helping me. He says. What do you mean? She asks, then sees flames erupt around his arm. I managed to create my transmuter ability, thanks to him making me so angry. He says, putting out the flames, and Pitou hums. So you have your full cowling for enhancer, you enhance sound with Nen for emitter, the healing mark for conjurer, and now flames for transmuter, that just leaves a manipulator ability to be made. Pitou says, and hums again. If your specialist ability wasn't what it was, you couldn't do this, having Nen abilities for the other 5 Nen types. She says. 4 months later. Nizu walks into the warehouse, that's quickly becoming known, for helping everyone equally, and to the surprise of many, the crime rate of the entire area around them has gone down to 0. For no real hero training, the two of them have made the area even safer, than even All Might could have. Nizu thinks. Naya, what are you doing here, Nizu? Pitou asks, walking up to him. The Night Eye Agency is investigating a man named Kai Chisaki. Nizu says. Oh, him. Izuku says, walking up, and Nizu can tell he's annoyed. Do you know him? Nizu asks. No, not personally, but I know someone here who does, Noroi. Izuku yells, and after a minute, Noroi and Toga walk up to them. Were you two about to go on a date? He asks. Yeah, but what did you need? Noroi asks. I need you to get Tanaka. Izuku says, and both of them smirk. Are we finally doing something about that monster? Toga asks. Yes, even if Sir Night Eye doesn't do anything, Pitou and I will do it ourselves. Izuku says, and the two of them walk away. 10 minutes later the two of them return with a third man. He's probably 30, he has spiky, gray hair and eyes, he's wearing a black suit vest over a white dress shirt, black dress pants and dress shoes. You wanted to see me? Tanaka asks, and then sees Nizu. I assume we're finally going to do something about Kai. He asks. Noroi and Toga, you two can continue with the rest of your day. Raza, you're going to the Night Eye Agency with the 3 of us. Izuku says, and the 3 of them nod. An hour later the 4 of them are standing in front of a 5-story tall office-looking building. Hey Midoriya, Neferpitou, what are you two doing here? They hear from behind them, and look to see both Mirio and All Might. I asked if they'd help, and they brought Tanaka here, who seems to have information on Chisaki. Nizu says. Humph, I could tell you anything you want to know about Kai, I practically raised him. Tanaka says, gaining the 3 of them's attention. How is that? All Might asks. Until 3 months ago I was a member of the Shai Hasaikai. Tanaka says, shocking the 3 of them. And before you say anything, believe me, I never wanted to take that path in life, but it was either that or deal with all of the enemies my parents made, being Yakuza themselves. He says. Let's go, I'm not looking forward to hearing this again. Izuku says. Hour later. The 6 of them are in a meeting room with 3 other heroes, and all but Izuku, Pitou, and Tanaka look beyond horrified. The 3 of them just look livid. Told you couldn't handle it. Make sure to contact the 2 of us when you decide to take the BSTRD down. Izuku says, as the 3 of them leave. Naya, what are we going to do, Aizu? Pitou asks. Like I said, no matter what they or the Hero Association decides, we're taking Chisaki down, even if it comes down to killing him. Izuku says. We find Noroi walking out behind the warehouse to see Izuku and Pitou sparring. Pitou, Izuku, Sir Night Eye is here to talk to you. He says, and they stop. About damn time. Izuku says, heavily annoyed. Naya, agreed, it's already been a week. Pitou says, and they head inside. Sitting at the setup near the back is a tall, slim man. He has combed dark green hair with a yellow streak in it, beady yellow eyes, and he's wearing a white suit. It's about time you made a decision, not like the life of a little girl is at stake or anything. Toga growls out passing by. Does she know about the situation? Night Eye asks, glaring. Of course, everyone here knows, I'm going to be frank here, even though you're a pro hero, I don't trust you, whereas I trust everyone here. And none of us can stand how long it took for you to come to whatever decision you have, when the life and sanity of a little girl are on the line. Izuku says, glaring as well, and Night Eye flinches. Now what have you guys decided? Pitou asks. Of course, we're gonna save the girl, though to be honest several other pros and I don't believe you two should go, you don't have any hero training. Night Eye says. Then what does that say for all other heroes and the hero schools, since the area that only the two of us patrol, is already being considered the safest in all of Japan? Izuku challenges, glaring harshly. Naya, before Izuku mouthed off, I sensed a, but coming. Pitou says. Yes, All Might convinced us to let you guys participate in the raid. Night Eye says, getting up and leaving. Thank God he's gone. Izuku says annoyed, then he catches a stray thought from Pitou. I'm surprised you're only thinking about that now, it's been 8 months since then. You weren't blocking your thoughts, if you're wondering. He says. Oh, could we talk in the back? Pitou asks. Of course. Izuku says, and they head into the back room. So why is it bothering you now? He asks. Sigh, I don't know, back in limbo I could care less about redemption, you're the one who said that, but as of late, I feel bad for everything I did, it feels like my feelings and at the same time it doesn't. Pitou says confused, and Izuku sighs, sitting down beside her. I really don't know what to say, yes I was the one who said anything about redemption, you only accepted since it gave you another chance at life, one where you made your own decisions. But maybe you found something along the way. Izuku says. Like what? She asks, just as confused. Humanity, after all from what I saw of your memories, I believe between the king, you, Yuppie, and Poof, I think you had started out the most human. And later you could say the king found humanity, he did come to care for Komugi, which you three never could have foreseen. Maybe you're going through the same thing, and you're starting to feel bad for what you did, of course I'm not sure if that's the case, though I believe it's a possibility, the four of you were spawned because the queen chowed down on humans, maybe deep down all chimera ants have humanity. Regardless if I'm right or not, sigh, here's a cheesy line for you, yesterday is history, tomorrow is a mystery, and today's a gift, that's why it's called the present. He says, and her eyes widen, then she busts out laughing. Really, that was cheesy, but I guess it's not wrong, I can't change what I've done, but I can change who I become. She says smiling, making him smile. Can I ask you something else? She asks, and he nods. What do you see in me that's good? I'm no different or arguably worse than bakugou, and plenty of villains. She asks, and he actually frowns at that. I've always tried to see the best in everyone, so there's plenty different, but the most important is that you may not have cared that you did it back then, but back then you also had no choice, it was either that or death, whereas bakugou and villains have full control of their choices, just like you do now, and all you've done is good. Izuku says, when they hear the phone Nizu gave Izuku ding and Izuku checks it. Alright, the raid is taking place in a few days, and then we'll be having a meeting with Nizu, All Might, and Recovery Girls sometime after. He says. 2 days before raid. Naya, so why are we headed to the Night Eye Agency? Pitou asks. Some of the pros who are a part of the raid, want to see what we're capable of. Izuku says. Sounds like they're trying to find a reason for us to not be a part of the raid. Pitou says, and Izuku nods at that. After a few minutes they're walking past an alley, when someone bumps into Izuku, they look and their eyes widen, seeing a little girl with long, messy white hair, and large, innocent, strikingly red eyes, and a small brown horn on the right side of her forehead. She's wearing a dirty, pale tan, short-sleeved dress, and bandages on her arms and legs. Izuku, this is the girl Tanaka told us about. She thinks. Yeah, this is Eri, meaning Chisaki can't be far, hold on. Izuku thinks back. Hello Eri. Izuku says kindly. How do you know my N name? Eri asks terrified. Do you remember Mr. Tanaka? He's a friend of ours, and he's told us a lot about you. Izuku says. Mr. Tadanaka, yes, I remember him, he was very kind. Eri says, just a tad happier. Would you like to see him? Izuku asks. I would, but overhaul will hurt all of you. Eri says, sad and scared. Eri, you don't have to worry about him, you'll be surrounded by pro-heroes, including All Might. Overhaul might be insane, but he isn't insane enough to fight All Might. Izuku says. Izuku, someone else is coming through the alley. Pitou says, scaring Eri, and Izuku scoops up Eri, while Pitou grabs a hold of Izuku. Hold your breath, Eri. Izuku says, and she nods and holds her breath and the world blurs around them, and then they're in front of the Night Eye Agency. It's still surprising how fast you are at 100%. Pitou says, letting go while Izuku puts Eri down, and they walk into the building to see Mirio, Nijire, and Tamaki. Hey you three, where's Tanaka at? Izuku asks. Him and the pro-heroes are making a plan for the raid. Mirio says, the three then notice Eri. Neferpitou, why didn't you tell us you have a little sister? Nijire asks. Naya, I don't, this is Eri, the girl they're currently making a plan to rescue, she ran into us on our way here. Pitou says, surprising the three of them. Pitou, you stay down here with Eri. Izuku says, heading up to the meeting room. When he gets up there he opens the door, to see Tanaka, Sir Night Eye, All Might, Nizu, and 4 other heroes. The first 2 are Sir Night Eye's sidekick Centipeder and Bubble Girl, then there's the 2 pro-heroes, first is the Dragoon hero, Ryukyu, and last is the BMI hero, Fat Gum. Oh, Midoriya, you're here faster than I thought you'd be. Tanaka says, shocking the other 2 pros in the room. Yeah, well, considering what happened on Pitou and I's way here, it was imperative we got here quick. Izuku says. What? All Might asks. Eri, she escaped and down in the lobby right now, and she really wants to see you, Tanaka. Izuku says, shocking them all. Really? Tanaka says, running out of the room, and all of them follow. When they get down there, they all see Eri standing behind and holding onto Pitou's leg, almost hiding really. Everyone back up a bit. Izuku says. Eri. Tanaka says, happily, walking slowly. Mr. Tanaka. Eri says, running to and hugging him. It's so good to see you, kiddo. Tanaka says. What happened? He told me you left. Eri cries. I had to, or Chisaki would have gotten rid of me himself, but I never stopped trying to think of a way to save you. Tanaka says, picking her up into another hug. Now Eri, I know you don't like doctors, but we know a very nice old lady who is a real doctor, she helps instead of hurting, we want to make sure you're perfectly healthy. He says, and they notice how apprehensive she is. If you want, Pitou and I will stay with you. Izuku says. I'd like that, but can't Mr. Tanaka stay? Eri asks. Sigh, Eri, I've got to go away for a while. Tanaka says. What? But Eri says, tearing up. Eri, despite the fact that I myself never hurt anyone, Chisaki was able to hurt a lot of people because of my actions. But don't worry, I made sure you'll be left in the care of Izuku and Pitou, and they'll take good care of you. Tanaka says, tearing up himself. Sir, is the raid still going to happen, since Eri's with us now? Mirio asks. Of course, though I assume you two aren't going to participate now that Eri is in your safety now. Night Eye says, talking to Izuku and Pitou. Wow, that's the first smart thing you've said, since we met, if we can we'll get a checkup for Eri with Recovery Girl. Oh, and, if Chisaki escapes you, like Tanaka has warned you about, and he's able to come after Eri, expect him to no longer have arms. Izuku says as he picks up Eri and leaves along with Pitou and Nizu. A couple hours later the 4 of them are walking towards a large building shaped like an H. So this is UA, are you sure Recovery Girl won't mind? He asks. Of course she won't mind, you might not know but All Might and I told her about this, she specifically told us to bring Eri to her when she was in our safety. Nizu says. Naya, it probably helps now that she can have a talk with me even earlier than we expected. Pitou says, after a few minutes the four of them walk into a nurse's office to see an old lady. It's nice to finally meet you three. The lady says. It's nice to meet you as well, recovery girl. Izuku says, after an hour they walk out to the hall. Well, that's all the tests done, now I'd like to talk to Neferpitou privately, but first why don't we take those bandages off? Recovery girl says, and Eri freaks out. Let me, Eri, there are scars under your bandages aren't there? Izuku asks softly, and she nods, and he smiles kindly. Why didn't you say something earlier? I can get rid of them for you, one of the abilities I have is just for healing others. He says softly clasping one of her hands. 10-second healing charge. He says and after 10 seconds starts unwrapping the bandages, and to her happiness all scars are gone, and she hugs him. 2 months later. I still don't understand why we have to watch the applicants with the teachers, the majority of them are just spoiled brats anyway. Izuku says, while Eri is sitting on his shoulders, her hair is wavy like Pitou's. And she's wearing a similar outfit to Pitou, just in Izuku's colors. It's mostly just to see who we'll be working with, plus the teachers wanted to see Eri again. Pitou says, reaching up and patting Eri on the head, making her giggle. It's not like we're coming here to make friends. Izuku says, and the two of them walk into UA, immediately running into All Might. Good morning you two, and Eri nice to see you again, the viewing room is this way. All Might says, which stuns everyone around them, and they follow him. After a couple minutes they walk into a room, with other pro-heroes and Nizu. Ah, the Midoriyas are here. Nizu says. Wait, what did you call us? Izuku and Pitou ask, blushing a bit. What, the Midoriyas? Well you two treat Eri like she's your daughter, she calls you both mama and papa, and other than the licensing exam, I've never seen you two separate from the other, so you three are like a family. Nizu says. Plus that idea is moved along considering, Eri does look a lot like Neferpitou. All Might says, and the other pros nod in agreement. Oh, I guess that's not wrong. Izuku says, as they sit down on both sides of Nizu, with Eri sitting on Pitou's lap, and after a few hours they are getting ready to watch the physical part of the exam. After a while of Izuku watching bakugou on the monitors, he hears a bit of shifting beside him. And now, for the real test. Nizu says hitting a button, and the three of them hear a bunch of rumbling, and a giant robot appears in each of the battle centers. Izuku sees a large slab of concrete falls on a brown-haired girl, and after a few seconds Izuku is surprised to see bakugou flying into the air, releasing a massive and very powerful explosion, and the robot completely stops. Did he just save her? The bakugou I know would never do that. Izuku thinks. I saw it too. Pitou thinks back, as they watch bakugou holding his arms in pain, and see the girl he saved, floating on the rubble that was on her and seemingly slaps him, only for his fall to slow and land on the ground softly. After an hour the three of them are walking out of UA. So we got the schedule, our uniforms, and we're both in the same class, let's head home. Izuku says, and they nod. Hours later we see the three of them sleeping, with Eri between them, Pitou's closed eyes then start twitching, and after a couple minutes, her eyes open but instead of the warehouse she wakes up in a forest. Izuku, Eri. She yells, and it just echoes through the forest. Why does this place feel so familiar? She wonders when she's assaulted by images, the images stop after 10 minutes and she realizes that she's on her knees holding her head and crying. Neferpitou. She looks up and her eyes widen, seeing a boy the same age as Izuku. He has long, spiky, black hair that's green at the tips, and hazel brown eyes. He's wearing a white tank top, green, short shorts, and green boots. Gone, is this some type of sick joke, bringing me back to this world when I'm actually happy, just to be killed again, after being reminded of all the horrible things I've done? She screams, looking to the sky. How are you still alive, and what do you mean by, back to this world? He asks, more confused than anything. You did kill me, if that's what you're wondering. She says, sitting down with her head in her knees. And what I meant by back to this world is, when you killed me, instead of going to hell, like I should have, I was brought to the land of judgment. She then proceeds to tell Gon everything that's happened after he killed her. To be honest, I don't think you're back in our world, and even if you were, I couldn't kill you if I tried. He says, a couple hours later, sitting in front of her. What do you mean, and why are you so calm? She asks. Well, I may not be a chimera ant, but I have inhuman senses, and this forest doesn't smell like a forest, it doesn't smell like anything actually. And about not being able to kill you, I lost access to my nen after I killed you, and haven't been able to unlock it myself. And why I'm calm, I may have hated you a year ago, but that was a year ago, and it's clear even to me, that you're not the same Neferpitou from a year ago. Despite how I know most see me, I'm more perceptive than people give me credit for. He says, staring at the sky. Oh, would you like your nen unlocked again? She asks awkwardly. More than you can imagine, I love my aunt a lot, but I'd really like to go on adventures again. Gon says, turning around, and Pitou nods, placing her hand on his back, and with a pulse of nen everything goes white. When the light dies down, Pitou is in bed with Eri and Izuku. Was that all a dream? She thinks, then shakes her head and goes back to sleep. We find Izuku, Pitou, and Eri are in the back room, eating breakfast for their first day of UA. Izuku is wearing a white dress shirt under a light gray blazer with dark turquoise trim, with a red tie, dark turquoise dress pants, and his black and green high tops. Pitou and Eri are wearing a white dress shirt, under a light gray waistcoat, with a red tie, dark turquoise pleated skirts, black stockings, and sneakers, with Pitou's being dark red and blue, and Eri's being black and green. These uniforms are better than I thought they'd be. Izuku says, and Pitou nods. Yeah, I thought it was going to be something stupid, but they aren't bad looking at all, Naya. She says. Plus they're comfy, and not hot, despite how they look. Eri says, making Izuku and Pitou chuckle. Anyway, I can see we're all done eating. Izuku says, picking up the dishes, and putting them in a kitchen sink, that's been put in the room. Now, let's get going, we have 15 minutes till class starts, and we also have to drop Eri with Recovery Girl, Hound Dog and Nizu. Not that speed will be a problem for me. He says, as the three head out of the building, leaving Toga and Noroi in charge. Izuku picks up Eri while Pitou grabs a hold of him and the world blurs around them. As they appear outside the gates of UA, Izuku puts Eri down and they head inside to Nizu's office. Morning, you too, you as well little Eri, I'll take from it from here on out, and call Chio and Inui. Nizu says, and the two nod, heading to their class. See you later mama, papa. Eri says, and they wave back at her. Izuku, Pitou says. I believe what you experienced was real, and Tails had a hand in it, considering he healed me from likely the brink of death, and sent you to this world after bringing you back from the dead. Something like this is probably a simple matter to him. Izuku says. Naya, I know you're right with this, it's just, she says. You deserve to be here, you're not Neferpitou the Chimera Ant anymore, you're Pitou the hero, even Gon said you've become a better person. He says, and she smiles. Yeah, you're right, but you deserve to be here more than anyone, Naya. Pitou says, as they stop outside of Class 1A. Morning, erase her head. Izuku says, looking at the ground, and seeing a man in a yellow sleeping bag. Morning, you too, how's Eri? The man asks, getting out of the sleeping bag, and we see he has black hair and eyes, a full black outfit, with a gray scarf-looking thing, around his neck. She's happy, it was almost impossible to get her to sleep last night. Izuku says, smiling. Anyway, get in there, class is about to start, and while here, you'll call me Aizawa-sensei. Aizawa says, and the two nod, as the three of them walk in to see Bakugou and a guy with short, dark blue hair and eyes arguing. Quiet down, and sit down now. He says, and everyone, but Izuku and Pitou sit down. Good, now I'm Shota Aizawa, I'm your homeroom teacher, these two, are two of your fellow students, Izukumidoriya and Neferpitou, but they will also be acting as teacher aides, in a sense. He says. Why's that? A girl asks, she has pink hair and skin, black scara and gold eyes. Izuku, Neferpitou. Aizawa says, and the two nod, taking out their hero licenses, shocking everyone. As you can see, these two already have, well, unique hero licenses, while they'd normally have gotten provisional licenses. Because of their unique case, they were given full licenses. Now you two sit down. Now, the other 18 of you will be doing a quirk apprehension test. He says. What about orientation? The girl that Bakugou saved asks. And what will they be doing? A guy asks, he has red and white hair, and heterochromatic eyes, the left being turquoise and a scar being around that eye, and his right being dark gray. They'll be with Nizu, recovery girl and hound dog, working on some personal business. Now put these on. Aizawa says, pulling out a blue outfit with white line on it shaping UNA. A few hours later, Izuku and Pitou are headed to the lunchroom, when they hear the pink girl's voice. Hey, wait you two. She says, and they look back and see the other girls in their class. What do you want? Izuku asks, more aggressive than he meant. Geez, you could be a little more friendly, you're our classmates and we just want to get to know you too. She huffs. Sorry that, admittedly, came out more aggressive than I meant, but still I'm not here to make friends, only so the pencil pushers in the HPSC will get off our asses. He says, when Pitou bonks him on the head. What was that for? He asks, looking at her. Naya, play nice, Nizu said we should at the least give our classmates a chance, and not write them off, we don't know anything about them. Pitou says. Fine. He says, walking away. What's his problem? Asks a girl with short, dark purple hair, dark eyes, and earphone jacks attached to her ears. He just needs to warm up to you guys. Izuku has some trust issues, right? My name is Neferpitou and his is Izukumidoriya, Naya. Pitou says. Kyoka Jiro. The purple-haired girl says. Mina Ashido. The pink girl says. Ochako Uraraka. The girl Bakugou saved says. Toru Hagakure. An invisible girl says. Tsuyu Ajui. A girl with long, dark green hair tied in a bow, dark green eyes, and a frog-like face, says. Momo Yayorozu. A girl with long, black hair in a spiky ponytail, and black eyes says. So, is there a quick way, to get your brother to warm up to us? Hagakure asks, confusing Pitou. Naya, we're not siblings, step-siblings, nor are we related in any way. Pitou says, confusing them. Then why do you and him share the same last name? Momo asks. Naya, 2 reasons, my actual name is just Neferpitou, so I took his last name, and 2, Izuku and I are mates anyway, so it's not odd for me to take his last name. Pitou says, shocking them. Meow, I can't really think of a way that he'd warm up to you guys quick, but I'll tell one thing, if Izuku and Bakugou get into an argument, stay out of it and don't take sides, they have some bad BLD, Naya. She says, walking towards Izuku, who's holding 2 trays, and they think the second is for Neferpitou, until Pitou gets her own tray, confusing a couple people and Izuku puts both trays on a lunch table, when they hear a little girl's voice. Mama, Papa. Eri says, running towards Izuku, who smiles and picks her up. What have we told you about your indoor voice, princess? Izuku asks, false scolding, and Izuku looks and sees several people looking at him, the girls from his class, looking shocked. What? He asks, sitting down and setting Eri down, and the 3 of them start eating. Is it alright, if we sit here too? Mina asks, after a few minutes with the other girls, and they've gotten their own lunches. Do whatever you want. Izuku says, and they nod, sitting down. So, who's this, and why'd she call you two, Mama and Papa? Hagakure asks. Naya, this is Eri, we saved her from a horrible villain 2 months ago, and we've been caring for her since. Pitou says. Yep, and she's our adopted daughter. Izuku says, shocking them and others listening. So, why is she here? Kyoka asks. We're not leaving her education in the hands of people who don't know how to properly educate kids, and the BSTRD that we saved her from is still at large. So UA is the only place with teachers we trust, and is the safest place for her, when Pitou and I can't be around her. Izuku says, and the girls nod in understanding. Later they're all in the classroom as All Might walks through the door. Alright students, time for your first class of Foundational Hero Studies. All Might says, standing at the podium. Now, today is combat training, though what you'll be doing is different from what your sister class, Class 1B will be doing. He says, and the guy Bakugou was arguing with raises his hand. Yes, young Ida. He asks. Why is that, sir? Ida asks. That is because of both Midoriyas, considering they have an advantage that none of you have, your trial will be different. Your trial being, 9 of you will be against one of them. And it's already been decided who will be against who. Izuku vs Todoroki, Bakugou, Azui, Ojiro, Uraraka, Aoyama, Jiro, Kaminari, and Mineta. And Neferpitou v.s, Yaoyorozu, Kuda, Ashido, Kirishima, Hagakure, Tokoyami, Ida, Shoji, and Siro. All Might says. Isn't this overkill for 2 people? Asks the guy with dual-colored hair. Normally, yes, but I've personally felt what they're capable of, young Todoroki. All Might says, rubbing his jaw and stomach from the phantom pains. Now go, get dressed in your costumes. He says, pressing a button on a remote, and a section of the wall comes out, and there are numbered suitcases. After 10 minutes, the class comes out to an open gym that looks like a wasteland, but they see that Izuku and Pitou are wearing normal clothes. Where are you two's costume? Uraraka asks. We're not going to wear some ridiculous outfit, like the majority of you are, the only ones who don't look like they're begging for attention, is Jiro and the blonde guy with a black streak in his hair. Izuku says, annoying the majority of them. Cough, anyway, let's get started. We'll start with, Neferpitou v.s, Yaoyorozu, Kuda, Ashido, Kirishima, Hagakure, Tokoyami, Ida, Shoji, and Siro. All Might says, and the ones named, nod and walk out farther into the wasteland. Alright, begin. He yells, and the first to move is Ida, who actually has engines in his legs, and rushes at Pitou, throwing a kick which she brings her arm up to block, but shocking everyone, except Izuku. When Ida's leg impacts Pitou's arm, the armor of his costume's leg shatters. Ida falls to the ground screaming in pain, as his now bare leg, looks like one giant bruise. She feels something wrap around her, she looks and sees tape wrapped around her and follows it to a lanky guy, who pulls, she doesn't budge but grabs the tape and pulls him to her, and lightly hits him with a palm strike to his stomach, knocking him unconscious. Then a big guy with 6 arms, rushes at and attacks her. Though she sways out of the way of each swing, she then proceeds to flip kick, knocking him back and then spin kick him in the stomach, and he topples over unconscious. So, Jiro says, standing beside Izuku. What? Izuku asks. Watching the fight. Since it's your girlfriend that our classmates are up against, what are the chances of them beating her? She asks. 0. The only person here who could beat Pitou is me. He says plainly, and then they see Pitou's tail come up and hit something, causing a yelp, and everyone understands that Hagakure was trying to sneak up on her. Then what looks like a bird made of shadow rushes towards her, she grabs it by the head and pulling a guy with the head of a raven to her, and she lightly knees him in the gut, forcing the shadow to recede into his gut, as he falls unconscious. She looks at a guy whose head looks like a rock, and all he sees is the world go black, only seeing glowing, orange, predatory eyes in the darkness, he falls on his butt, terrified when his eyes roll into his head, passing out. She then grabs a guy by the head. He has spiky, red hair and eyes, and his body looks like rock, and knees him in the stomach, making him spit up a bit of BLD, before passing out. "Naya, my bad, thought you would take a stronger hit than the rest." Pitou says, when they hear a boom, and they look and see a cannon beside Yaoyorozu, but shocking them, Pitou stops the cannonball by grabbing it. She proceeds to throw it back at Yaoyorozu. The ball is going even faster than when it was shot from the cannon. The ball hits Yaoyorozu in the stomach but doesn't stop, taking her with it until they hit the gym wall, knocking her unconscious. She then stares at Ishido, unnerving her, though she yelps when Pitou appears in front of her, planting an elbow in Ishido's stomach, knocking her out. And that's the end of this battle. Now let's gather them up so the next battle can start. All Might orders. They nod, and after a few minutes they're all awake but sitting on the sidelines, with the exception of Pitou and Ida, Pitou currently standing by Izuku, and Ida being sent to Recovery Girl. Now for the next and last battle of the class, Izuku vs Todoroki, Bakugou, Azui, Ojiro, Uraraka, Aoyama, Jiro, Kaminari, and Mineta. He says, and they go farther into the wasteland. Begin. He yells, and Todoroki immediately steps as a glacier of ice erupts towards Izuku. When it stops, the whole field in front of them is now a giant glacier. Interesting quirk, though it's not all of you're capable of. Izuku says, now standing beside him, and his elbow is lodged in Todoroki's stomach, knocking him out, and Izuku disappears. Then Azui, Uraraka, Jiro, the guy with black streaked hair, and a guy with a large tail are thrown into different walls, knocking them out. Izuku appears beside a guy that looks like a kid considering how short he is, and punts him into a wall, knocking him out as well. He then appears by another blonde guy, wearing a very shiny suit of armor. "Geez, you're an assault on the eyes," he says, punching him in chest, denting and cracking the armor, as well as throwing him into a wall, knocking him out. He then disappears. Leaving the best four, Bakugou goes to say, but Izuku appears in front of him, uppercutting him, but he grabs Bakugou's leg before he can go anywhere, causing a cracking sound, and throwing him down to the ground, causing a sizable crater. The match is called, and after everyone is awake other than Bakugou, who was sent to Recovery Girl for his leg and a broken nose. Well, that was a quicker battle than even I was expecting. Nevertheless, good job. All Might says, but the majority of the class looks forlorn while Todoroki looks annoyed. How was that a good job? Outside Izuku and Neferpitou, they completely decimated all of us, the blonde with the black streak asks. Think of it as multiple lessons in one then. Kaminari, Lesson 1, Overconfidence. All 9 of you who fought each of us, underestimated us. Yes, we're both the same age as all of you, but we have half a year of actual experience. Lesson 2, Teamwork. It wouldn't have helped much, but it would have been better than coming at a superior opponent one at a time. That's how you get yourself killed. Lesson 3, the ability to assess how strong your opponent is. There's no shame in running from an opponent you know you don't have a chance against, and the fact is, it's a bad idea to fight someone when you have no idea what they're capable of. There's likely a few other things I could say, but I can't think of them right now. Izuku says. Those are some fine points for you guys to think on. Now go get changed. There is still some time in this class, but you guys should rest after what you just went through. All Might says, and they nod, leaving. Maybe you two should hold back when against your classmates. He says. I was holding back a lot. Pitou says. I was only going 15% with full cowling. Izuku says, as he and Pitou head to get changed too. These two really have no reason to be here. Why can't the commission see that? All Might thinks, heading to his office for the class report. A week ago. We then see an island, and then a house, then inside a room is Gon, and he's holding a phone. Hey Killua. Gon says. Hey Gon, It's not been that long since we last talked, you sent a text saying we needed to talk, and it was urgent. Killua says. Yeah, I can use my nen again. Gon says. What, how? Killua asks. Well, how do I explain this without you freaking out? Gon says. That doesn't bode well. Killua says, exasperated. Last night I had what I first thought was a dream, but now I know there's no way it was. Anyway, I woke up in the forest, where I killed Neferpitou. When I walked further into the forest, I saw Neferpitou. She was on her knees, holding her head and crying. Gon says. Okay, that's strange. Killua says. That's not even the half of it. Gon says, and proceeds to explain everything he was told. Sai, do you know how hard this is to believe? Killua says. So you don't believe me? Gon asks. I'm probably the only person who would believe you, except maybe Knuckle, plus that story is too well thought out for you to have made up. Sai, let's meet up in York New City in a couple weeks. Killua says. You got it. Gon says, hanging up. So alright folks, that's all for today. Stay tuned for more crossovers. Do subscribe, like and share for more such videos. Also check out the story and author Awesome 10 Tales on fanfiction.net. Press the bell icon to be notified first on release. See you in the next video. Till then, goodbye. Assassin's Wast.